Over the past several years, you may have heard that Tornado Alley is shifting eastward. While there are studies that show an eastward movement, there's still a lot of research that needs to be done to prove a definitive yes or no. East Texas News' Michael Richardson explains.
Is Tornado Alley shifting eastward? The answer isn't a simple yes or no, and Andrew Tate believes current data may be skewed.
So I think we're seeing more tornadoes overall because more radars and more people that are seeing them.
Let's take a look at some of the data supporting the eastward shift. Here's an image from a study published earlier this year in the American Meteorological Society. Between 1951 and 1985, most tornadoes that measured at least an EF1 were concentrated in Oklahoma and the Great Plains. Compare that to between 1986 and 2020. A large bulk of tornadoes shifted eastward toward Mississippi and Kentucky. What could be a reason for this?
As we see ocean patterns, El Nino, La Nina changing, as we see global patterns changing, that is going to influence where we see severe weather happen.
NWS Shreveport meteorologist Ryan Knapp says more research needs to be done to prove whether or not Tornado Alley is really shifting. He says trends will play a big factor in that conclusion.
Hurricanes, we're always looking at trends. We're always looking at where is the best trend occurring within the model guidance. And I think the same is going to occur when it comes to looking at tornado frequency. Where is the highest frequency of these tornadoes occurring?
Even if Tornado Alley may be moving, that doesn't mean the tornado threat will diminish or decrease in East Texas.
Tornadoes can happen anytime, any place. They've happened across all 50 states. Speaking to people across East Texas, tornadoes will always be a part of this area. They will never not be.
Michael Richardson, East Texas News.
Knapp says tornadoes are more frequent during a La Nina weather pattern. When that occurs, winter is typically warmer in the south and water off the Pacific is colder. That's according to NOAA.